Hi, my name is Becky Fowler, and in this presentation I will be discussing intrauterine development and its effect on obesity. This is my overview. I wanted to start my presentation by sharing some facts from the Center for Disease Control website. As you can see, um, the maternal weight pre-gravidarum or pre-pregnancy is right now about 60% above normal weight. So we do have women going into pregnancy being overweight or obese. Then we look at maternal weight gain, which is less than 30% of women stay within the Institute of Medicine's recommended guidelines, and I created a small chart at the bottom of the screen. So you can see what the guidelines are for the recommended weight gains, and we have women these days who are gaining much more weight than that. Now I can tell you, as a woman who gained 70 pounds during her first pregnancy, maybe women should be able to eat what they want, but studies are showing that that really is not the way to go. Um, the next thing that is concerned with intrauterine development is gestational diabetes mellitus, which occurs in 7% of pregnancies. This can cause macrosomia, which causes very large babies and can cause issues for the baby after birth. And gestational diabetes mellitus can affect women of normal weight range, but I would think that this number will increase with the rising obesity prevalence that we are currently experiencing here in the United States. Some other issues that can happen during pregnancy are undernutrition and intrauterine growth restriction, which can affect the baby after they're born due to the catch-up growth that they experience. So the background and research I did, to me, was very interesting. The first thing I came across is that 25 to 36% of women, um, or I'm sorry, the BMI has increased 25 to 36% over the last decade, which means that women are already at a higher BMI, which I discussed in the previous slide, and this is causing a 25% increase of high birth weight babies, which, like I said, can be a problem after birth. So the high and low birth weights can put offspring at risk of obesity, like I talked about in the previous slide. With the growth restriction or a low birth weight baby, they deal with an excessive catch-up growth after delivery in postnatal life. So these can be, the high and low birth weights can be related to maternal under or overnutrition. A study by Smith and Rickman stated that the effects on offspring is actually more detrimental with overnutrition, with a mother who's eating too much, versus undernutrition. Um, so when we look at that, when a mother is overeating and gaining too much weight, this can affect the gestational programming of the offspring, which is, it affects the hypothalamic arcuate nucleus, which is the ARC that causes appetite dysregulation. And the ARC is the main appetite regulatory site in the brain, and it may be permanently affected during development. So this can lead to altered organ structure, cellular responses, or gene expression. And another issue that can come up with intrauterine development is leptin sensitivity. We did discuss leptin in last week's lectures. We all know that it's a hormone that affects satiation, and it can be affected by maternal diet, and the offspring may express more leptin if they are exposed to undernutrition during development. This is a little graphic I found in the study that I looked at by Ross and Desai, and it kind of shows what happens during this programmed obesity that many children are experiencing that can affect them with childhood obesity and even into adulthood and cause adult obesity. So the in utero exposure to the maternal environment, which means mom's eating, if mom is eating a high fat diet, that's going to affect how the baby develops, and the epigenome, cell proliferation, cell differentiation, the gene expression, it's all going to lead to enhanced appetite and adipogenesis, which talks about hyperplasia, so extra fat cells, and they're just very large fat cells. And when the baby is developing, that can be altered permanently and be irreversible, and that's where the programmed obesity comes from. So the contribution to obesity looks pretty one-sided here. I found a lot of indicators that are for the contribution, like the studies that show the biological changes that are happening in the offspring, the intrauterine growth restricted babies, the low birth weight babies, and the large for gestational age. They're all at increased risk for childhood and adult obesity because of the genetic changes. We're looking at increased maternal BMI, increased weight gain during pregnancy, and maternal insulin resistance, which may or may not lead to gestational diabetes or type 2 diabetes later in life. This can negatively impact a developing embryo. And studies show that a healthy postnatal diet cannot always be reversed, cannot always reverse the metabolic effects that were caused by poor maternal nutrition. But I would have to say that this is an area where we're going to need to see more studies to see if, after children are born and they're living a much healthier lifestyle and mom is healthier and they live in that type of environment, it could have positive effects on our children. So my opinion, I say it's about 40%, the intrauterine development contributes to the obesity epidemic in the United States. We're seeing mothers who are more obese, they're heavier, they have more comorbidities, and this is causing their offspring to have genetically modified DNA that may affect them throughout childhood and adulthood. Like I said, they may not be able to reverse the metabolic damage that was done during development. Our children are starting their lives at a disadvantage, and that could be passed down through subsequent generations. So we're not just thinking about our children, we're thinking about our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. Are their genes going to be affected the way that our children are because of these DNA that is modified, essentially? So their postnatal environment may or may not have an effect. So if we can get our moms healthy again, get them eating better, maybe if a mother is obese, trying to get her to lose some weight before she does become pregnant, it could have a really great effect on our babies. Here's my reference page. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new today.